Hello and welcome, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a great holiday season. My name's Hayden, and I have the honor and privilege to be your moderator today for our first webinar of 2026. I'm excited to see how today's topics will assist you and your team in not just making your SharePoint environment, but taking your business to the next level. A few things to mention before we jump in. First, you may have noticed when you all joined, your mics are muted. That is by design. If you have any questions or comments during the presentation, we do encourage you to utilize the QA chat feature in your toolbar. There, our team will be able to reply to you in real time. Once the webinar concludes, we will then move into a live Q&A session, which we will then allow users to unmute, ask questions to our team, and those questions don't have to be about what we cover in today's webinar, but any of your M365 environment questions. But we'll go over that more in detail later. Also, be on the lookout in your emails for our next webinar, which will be coming up. But at this time, I want to go ahead and hand it over to Michael to give you all a brief message. Over to you, Michael.
Hey everyone, glad that you're with us today. Just a quick update for those that have participated in the SharePoint Concierge webinars in the past. Thanks for coming again. For those that are new, we started this series several years ago when we noticed clients were launching intranets or portals, and 6 months later, a year later, they were completely unaware of new features that Microsoft had released throughout the 365 ecosystem. And so these 10 or so webinars a year basically are to highlight, show demonstrations of features, functionality that Microsoft is releasing over SharePoint Teams, the Power Platform, different document management, records management strategies, the whole gambit there. So that's what we're here for. This isn't going to be a salesy or kind of marketing webinar. This is going to be drilling right into the point. You're going to hear several presentations today on different topics. I wanted to take 30 seconds. A lot of those questions that Hayden mentioned, the Q&A that we have at the end, they don't have to be about our specific topics. Anything on your mind, we'll do our best to answer. And a lot of those we've documented over the past and put in this FAQ section on our website. Again, a lot of good information here. You'll see here on the left-hand nav everything from SharePoint things related to Copilot, SharePoint migrations, Teams, Power Platform, Power BI, the whole works, the whole gambit there. So I encourage you to maybe put a bookmark on this. I'll put this in the chat, the link to this here in just a second, but a lot of good information. And the more informed I think we can make you, we've found out over the years, better we can understand your business, the better we can add some real depth to 365 and SharePoint. So welcome aboard. I'll hand this back to Hayden and we'll get started. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Michael. As you all can see, we do have a jam-packed schedule today. You're going to be hearing new a lot. Happy New Year. 3 out of the 4 topics being featured today are new features. So Evelyn will start us off by covering the new master archived content search in M365. If you need to retain data, whether for compliance purposes or audit purposes, but would like to archive the information, this teaching is definitely for you. In this lesson, we'll explore best practices using SharePoint and OneDrive search to find archived files and sites, understand permission trimming, and discovering how to reactivate archived content. This is perfect for most SharePoint end users, but definitely your IT team as well. Dylan will then go over the new SharePoint document library forms. If you need a secure spot to allow employees to upload files as well as fill out some of the columns and metadata tags without granting them access to see other files, this training will definitely assist with that. That's right, modern digital forms can dramatically simplify the way organizations gather, manage, and process documents. We'll show how you can simplify document intake, reduce manual follow-ups, and improve accuracy across your workflows, such as onboarding, vendor submissions, compliance files, and more. This lesson or teaching is really useful for all SharePoint end users. Ken Lewis is diving deep with us surrounding content AI rules in SharePoint to set sensitivity labels and retention policies. If you're looking for a great way to let the system assist in locking down sensitive information, you will want to pay attention to this lesson. Ken will be going over how to align document handling with your Purview governance framework by enabling rules that can be triggered by a change in a column data or additional files added to a SharePoint library. Business users can apply a retention policy and sensitivity label as predefined in Purview to the documents that meet specific conditions. This, for audience purposes, IT admin, compliance officers, legal team, and really SharePoint end users as well. Last but certainly not least, Leona Winter will be teaching us about the new Ultimate Access Audit, Permission State Report Explained. Having your data secure with a lot of employees in your organization can be a challenge, especially when they have rights to share out documents. If your organization struggles with this lesson is definitely for you. Join us as we explore together the Permission State Report, a game-changing feature that gives you complete visibility into who has access to what across your M365 environment. In this session, you'll learn how to quickly uncover all sites, libraries, folders, and files that are tied to a specific user, and take action to eliminate oversharing risks before they impact your organization. We'll show you how this tool simplifies audits, strengthens security, and sets the stage for a safe and successful Copilot deployment. This is particularly useful for IT and administrators, but also any solutions team you may have. So, as you can see, we have a ton to go over. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on into the first topic, the new master archive content search in M365, taught by Evelyn. Over to you, Evelyn.
Thank you, Hayden. Hi, everyone. Today, we'll be covering archive content searching. Some of you may already know that Microsoft offers Microsoft 365 Archive. It is a long-term storage solution for inactive SharePoint content with the same searchability and security as active data. Now, this is a paid service, so you will have to work with your SharePoint administrator or global administrator to set up and manage Microsoft 365 Archive. If you take a look at my slide, here we can see that once the feature is enabled in SharePoint admin, your administrator will be able to archive any sites. So in this case, once they select a active site, they'll have the option to archive it, and that will move the site into the archive site section. If at any point they need to reactivate content, they'll be able to go to the archive site section, select the site, and reactivate. And it is that simple. And now, real quick, the reason why we're here. We will now review how to search for archive content. You can do this by searching in OneDrive and in SharePoint Web. So let's see it in practice. In OneDrive, you will be able to perform your searches as you would normally, but if you wanted to include or review archive content, all you have to do is simply select the option to filter by archived. And by selecting that button, all the data that you will have access to already, it will be showing here. And so this will be important for you to know that if you did not have access to that permission before the site or the content was archived, you will continue to not have access to it. But if you do, then that will be the way for you to see. And now that is in OneDrive. Now in SharePoint, if you perform your search at the highest level in SharePoint or at tenant level, so then I'm going to search for as document. My results will come up matching the criteria of my search, and it will return anything from across the different sites that I have here. If I wanted to return content that is archived, and currently I have 2 different sites archived already, I can do that by selecting Search Archive Files at the bottom, or by filtering out the file type. you do this, you'll be able to see now that there's an archive option. Once I do that, it will return content from the 2 archives that I have access to. Once again, I need to have access prior to archive this to the content archived in order for me to see it archived. And here it is, the 2 sites that I have, and the result that best match my search criteria. Now, it is important for me to note that just because you are able to search for the content, it doesn't mean that you automatically have access to it. If I do try to access any of this content, it will give me a message that says that the site is archived. And this means that you will still need to work with your SharePoint administrator in order for them to reactivate the content. Possibly confirm that that's the content you're looking for, and then they reactivate that. Now, how long does it take for content to be accessible again? If we if your site was archived within the last 7 days, as soon as your administrator reactivates the sites, you will have access basically immediately. It will be restored right away. But if the site was archived over 7 days ago, it would take roughly about 24 hours for it to be accessible to you. And that's pretty much it. That's it for today. Back to you, Hayden.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Evelyn. As Evelyn explained, if you need to archive some data to make sure you have the most fresh and up-to-date data on your intranet, but you still want to either adhere to some compliance needs or even have an audit control, archiving is definitely the way to go. It can also assist out with the data analytics team. So very cool feature. Thank you so much, Evelyn. All right. Next segment is taught by Dylan, who will be teaching us about the new SharePoint document library forms. Over to you, Dylan.
Everyone, yeah. So in today's presentation, make sure you get the screen shared here. Yeah. So we'll go over the new document library forms experience. Basically, we'll learn how to use this feature. And this brings that forms experience that you got sometime last year, most likely, depending on the rollout, to Microsoft lists, and they're bringing it to the document libraries. And so basically what it does is it allows you with minimal customization to allow anyone in your organization, to fill out a form, even if they don't have access to that list. So you can kind of have it locked down and they can still fill out that form. And it's got, some nice controls just for some light branding and hiding and showing fields, things of that nature. And then specifically for the forms feature in the new documents library, you can prioritize the filling out of metadata at the time of uploading the document. You could require that they fill out certain metadata when they're actually uploading the document. And what's also nice is you can control the type of files that are uploaded, the size of them, and because the forms are tied to a folder, you can, in that sense, control where that document's being uploaded in that library, to which folder it's being uploaded. So the forms are tied to a folder, in other words. So it's kind of a nice way, just through the UI, without having to learn any kind of syntax or anything, be able to have a nice forms experience, not also having to manage custom permissions to just give someone the ability to upload or, fill out something. And so I think those have the key benefits here. Probably the biggest one, it's that, requiring someone to fill out certain metadata at the time of upload. Of course, that it's also just easy to set up and manage. There's nothing too complex about them. And then the other big draw, I think, is also not having to have permissions required to the library. So some examples, Hayden gave some as well, just, whether it's, marketing or someone wanting to gather, maybe there was a company outing or something, and you want to give people the option to upload photos to a folder from that outing, or gather logos from clients. Or it's something related, to filling out a contract, and that someone needs to upload that to a particular folder, or it's onboarding documents, whatever it may be that you're passing out. You're just wanting to gather and allow them to upload, but not necessarily they don't need to actually interact with it on the day-to-day. So this can be a nice, easy to use feature for that. And then also what's nice is easily be able to set those which I'd already mentioned, just the type of files, the size of them. So, to only allow them to upload PDFs or Word, etc., that kind of thing. And what I'll do is I'll bring this over onto the screen and we'll walk through it and show how that works. And then also real quick, what I'll show when I'm referring to it was in Microsoft Lists before, it had already been previously rolled out. So what that looked like is if you already had a SharePoint list, like here on the screen, I've got just in my sandbox site, a travel request, an example form here. So, here's the vanilla form, it's got some different formatting. But what you could do is you had this forms option, or you do have this forms option up here. And you could just create this form, and they're relatively easy, kind of similar even to maybe like Microsoft Forms, and bringing some of that kind of functionality into Microsoft Lists. So if you're already familiar with the feature that is here in Microsoft Lists, or you're using it, it's going to be very similar in document libraries. So I'll switch over to the document library and show it here. And also, we'll show you those key differences. So I've already got a handful of folders set up on my document library. And so for you, if you wanted to test this out on an existing library, and you already have some folders set up, and you'd say like a logos, or for a folder for whatever it may be, you can select that folder, your existing one, and then go ahead and fill out. Let me expand this a little bit. You could click that forms feature on the folder itself, and now you're actually creating that form or seeing forms that you already have for that folder, because the form, this form feature here is tied to that folder. Or just to get started here, what I'll do is I don't have any folders selected. I'll click forms at the top. Now I'm seeing all my existing forms that are tied to different folders down here. And I can see the name of the folder down below where it says, like the new request folder. I have this new contract request form. Or I could start creating a new form. Now, if I do that from here, it's going to first ask me to create a folder to tie this form to. So that's what is going to be the first step. Since I didn't have, in this example, folder already selected. So I'll just go ahead and back out. And what I'll show you real quick is I'll click into one of my existing ones that I already have set up. And so you can see, I've just got all my different metadata that's came in automatically. So whenever you create a new form through here, if you have metadata, as in you have like columns on your library, like custom ones, just to show from the start there, it'll just bring them in automatically. So to start out, of course, you could remove some if you don't want the metadata on the form. It doesn't require anything complex here. You can check and uncheck boxes on the side if you want, of which fields you want to show, and drag and drop them. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit as well. So, determining which fields you want to show. And if you already have sort of a content type and site columns, then that's probably what you're going to be doing here, is just kind of, selecting those different metadata fields you already have on your library. Now, of course, these forms do let you create new ones here, but if you have a more, controlled structure to your with content types, site columns, you wouldn't be creating them locally here, but it does give you that option here. Now, one key thing I'll mention, which could be make or break for some scenarios, is that right now the manage metadata field, that particular column, is not available in the form itself. Now, of course, if you have default values set up, or you have some kind of autofill or syntax or something that's tagging those, that all that stuff still works. Or you have Power Automate's tagging stuff, all that'll still work. But just in the actual form, we can see the type of fields. It's all the basic ones like single line of text, number, but also it does have lookup, image, hyperlink, person fields. So it does have some complex fields. It just, so far I haven't seen that they've implemented that management metadata field. But let me go ahead and go back and show you, because this could be a potential use case. My forms here, I'll open up an existing one that I have set up here. So a new contract request with link is what I called it, my example. So you can see I've uploaded a little logo here in the left, the top left. I've given it a header. I put a description in here. And then I also did something, which this is kind of just like a way without having to do any kind of custom development, really. Provide a download link to a template. So I've got a Word document already, and I just created a special download link and the description to make it easy for a user. Let's say this is a use case where you just want them to complete that document and then upload it. So we provide them a download link. And then here in my upload file, that file type set to Word only. So you can see I could select, either let them upload any kind of file, but maybe in this case, it's just a Word template that I want them to upload. So I've got it limited to be a Word document. And I can even control how large of a file that they could upload, if you wanted to. But right now it's defaulted there. And then the other things, which is really nice, is let's say for this, I want them to go ahead and fill out certain fields. And so I have a couple that are required here, like this over a certain amount, the total amount field, the requested by. So these fields, in order for them to upload this document, they're going to have to complete these required fields. And then there's also some optional fields they don't have to fill of upload. So what's nice about that, I'll go ahead and show you here. So that works is basically you would be giving that link out. So what I could do is it's anyone with that link will be able to fill out that form. So what I could do is I'll create a copy link of my form here, or if you're creating it, there's also the send form tab when you have the form in edit mode. It's the same thing, that copy link. And so at this point, it's either me sharing that out, whether it's by email or you put it as a quick link on one of your sites or wherever you might want to put it. And this will be available for all your internal users, as in like people have accounts in your tenant. And so let's say here in my side navigation, wanted to edit my side navigation. Then under my contract submissions, I could, add a link to that form that I copied and say, whatever I want to call it. Make it audience target if I wanted it to just show to certain people. But anyways, anyone with that link is going to be able to upload something regardless of their permissions. But, now let's say I've got that link there. So if someone clicks it, this will be the experience here. So open that form using that link that I copied. And you can see in my example here, I've got the header, I've got the description, I've got my download link, which will download that file, which then I could, fill out and go ahead and upload. I completed that. So this is that Word document. Now I'm gonna have to have these fields filled out because they're required before I upload it. I put an amount there, got to fill out this person field. And these other fields are optional, so I don't have to fill them out. And go ahead and fill them out. So this will let me submit since I'm meeting all those requirements there. And so at this point, as a user, that document has been submitted to my new request folder because this form is tied to the folder called new requests. So the experience for them is they never actually have to see the library, have access to it. They just need to have the link given to them or be surfaced for them somewhere to click, and they'll be able to upload something and fill out that metadata. And what I'll go ahead and show real quick, just a couple little things that I found in testing. So let's say it's a folder. My testing that works as well. So I've got an example here, a folder that's within a folder. So if I click, I've got my main folder here. The submit parent is the name of the top level folder. And then within there, I have this level 2 submissions is what I just called my folder. And so here, you can see I have that form set up there. So it does work as well. It doesn't have to be a top level folder in your document library. It could be a folder within a folder. So that it only gets submitted there. Now, one other thing I did find as well as a limitation besides the managed metadata column was it did let me set up form and on a document set, which is essentially like a folder with metadata on it. It did let me copy link to share out to other people. So even though it kind of almost worked, it doesn't let you create that link for anyone to submit to in a document set. So right now it's really just tied to a standard folder, and and can always come back to your list and see all of them at the top level, or click on a folder to see the forms just associated with that folder. And let's see, I think that oh yeah, and then just to wrap it up there, all of your, I think I mentioned this a little already, default values, if you have any type of auto tagging, automate rules, alerts, whatever, all that stuff is still functioning as normal. This is just a form that's allowing a different way to initiate that process to people that maybe don't have access to, that library. So yeah, potentially there's some interesting use cases there that could be useful, similar to it's provided some use for people on the Microsoft list. So with that, I will hand this back over to you, Hayden. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dylan. This is a very exciting new feature for SharePoint, especially document libraries, because you can send out the link, like Dylan was saying, into either a quick link on your SharePoint or sending it out via email. It unlocks a whole bunch of use cases that you can use for it. Way too many to cover in today's webinar, but here's a few to spark some creativity. If an employee has specific information they need to submit to HR, whether about insurance or benefits, this would be a great tool to use. Also, vendor form submissions, credit card receipts, any onboarding documentation, as well as even service desk tickets for help desk to external customers for them to submit some things. So very exciting feature. Thank you so much, Dylan. With that, let's go ahead and jump on over to Content AI rules in SharePoint to set sensitivity labels and retention policies taught by Ken. Over to you, Ken.
Great, thanks, Hayden. So one of the big bugaboos in the compliance space is getting your staff to tag either your retention labels or your sensitivity labels. The syntax engine, which has been renamed to document processing, has a feature that's been enabled over the last couple of months that allows you to automatically recognize a specific class of document and then tag that document with a retention label or a sensitivity label. So the feature is not free, unfortunately. Syntax does have a pay-as-you-go model, so you'll have to make sure that you have that turned on. You do get a limited, and I would call it a trial period, if you will, through June of this year. After that, the costs vary based on the features that you're going to want to use. You might blend multiple features together. The low end of the spectrum is incredibly cheap. The average per page cost is around 5 cents, but it can get very expensive for things like translation, where you buy blocks of characters and then you chew through those, and you have to keep re-upping those blocks of characters. You can go to the link here in the PowerPoint presentation for the pay-as-you-go, and they'll give you the current listing of what those prices are. So the features that we're going to look at today can be enabled through a couple of different processes. You can turn them on directly within a library, or you can turn them on in a centralized location. We chose to deploy a central management tool, so we'll show you that. This is our Syntax Content Center, and what it does is it provides a one-stop shop to monitor the models that have been deployed by the staff and to actually access them and look at the training data. If you deploy them in an individual way at the library level, that content, I believe, is stored locally. So here you can see the models that have been run over the last 30 days. We can then access the models themselves. This is a document library where all the models are stored. It is just like every other document library in that you can interact with the column headers, so we can go ahead and look for the models that I've deployed. You can see I've got 2 different classifiers that are available to me, and it also tells me where I've deployed those classifiers. So the classifier that I'm going to demonstrate today looks at a class of contract. The way the process works is that you would create a new model, and then you would turn on the features during that process. So if we create the model, we then choose what class of model we want to work with. We can do free-form extraction, where it looks for keyword type information in a fuzzy logic sense. We can do a classification, which is a structured document, or we can do a full structured extraction. If you go for a single class, you then get the demonstration of what the tool will do for you with this particular model type. You can then choose here to give it a name, and then under advanced settings, you choose your content type. This is very important. So my recommendation is that you have your content typing done ahead of time and that you then apply these features to your known content types rather than try to do this on the fly. But then here we have this compliance section, and this is where we can set our sensitivity labels and we can set our retention labels. Once you have your model built, you have to train the model. You have to go through, it tells us to give 5 example files. The reality is the more data you can give it, both positive and negative, the better the model will recognize the content as it begins to work with it. Unfortunately, the way the system works is that in my testing, when I went with the bare minimum, the accuracy really wasn't that great. But when I went back and I retrained the model with a few more examples, then I saw the accuracy improve to a point where I believe it's a really good tool for auto tagging. Because what you don't want is a lot of false positives, or worse yet, it misses things that should have been tagged with a given sensitivity label because it just can't recognize what it's looking at. So I won't actually create the model because it does have a propagation time. They don't take effect absolutely immediately. So I'll go ahead and use the built-in model that I built already. So here I have a model deployed, and I've got some test data that I'll bring over and drop into the model, and we'll see it do its thing. So I've got these documents. We'll go ahead and bring those over. And 2 of these are positives and 1 is a negative. The 2 positives should be tagged that they contain secrets, and then the negative should be ignored. And we can see that here. I've got my 3 new documents. I've got my negative, nothing happened. And then in my positive, I've got automatic tagging with the sensitivity that I was trying to achieve. So in my mind, for compliance purposes, this is well worth the cost. It does, again, have a cost of about 5 cents a page. You know, if you have larger documents, that can get expensive over time, but you have to weigh that against the risk of not being in compliance. You can set these features at the library level, so you don't necessarily need an auto tagging feature like this if you're going to designate specific libraries as holding certain kinds of sensitive content. But for those mixed libraries where you might be holding content that will have different levels of sensitivity, this is a great feature. The only downside I can see with this feature, cost aside, is the training portion, because you are going to want to have very good versions of your documents. If you're using a templated approach, then I think this tool is going to work great for you. If you're using the more fuzzy logic search, the accuracy is going to suffer. You're not going to get that high 90s, which is what you would need for you to be able to rely on this tool. The other thing to note too is that the sensitivity labels can be applied to any of the model types, but the retention labels can't be applied to the freeform models at this time. I believe that feature will come online shortly, but currently there's a limitation with that feature. When you want to apply something to a library, you can go through the feature set here, or you can go into the classify and extract. This already has a model applied, but you could go to what's available and you can add a model on the fly, or you could see the additional models that are available that could be applied to this library. So that makes the deployment more of a self-help on the part of the site owners, which I think is great because it's a pull model. They can go and they can pull the models in to then apply the various sensitivity labels. The only other thing to note on this is that there is a, need, if you will, to set the sensitivity labels up. So depending on the license that you're running on your tenant, you may already have the ability to do that. Your E3s, your E5s, you'll be able to set those up automatically. Just go into Purview and do the sensitivity label construction there. If you don't have those levels of licenses, then that's an additional cost that you'll have to consider, because you'll need to have the sensitivity labels available to you to be able to apply them in here. So with that, I'll hand things back to Hayden.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ken. Although employees should be trained and, well versed in how to set security and make sure things are taken care of, it is nice to lean on the machine a little bit to take care of some of those tasks, and then having the employee just review to make sure everything's accurate can help speed up some workflows. So this is perfect for any document library, like Ken was saying, that has multiple different security labeling, and the machine can help get those set up and help with your overall company security. So that's perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Last but certainly not least, Leona will be going over and teaching us about the new Ultimate Access Audit, Permission State Report Explained. Over to you, Leona.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Yep, in this presentation, we're going to be covering specifically the new site permissions for user report located in the SharePoint admin portal. This report captures permission states for given users at a specific point in time, giving you a complete overview of site access or sites accessible to these users along with the extent of access. You can determine whether the entire site is shared or only a few files or items within the site is shared. Some prerequisites that you're going to need to have, you're going to need to be in Office 365 with an E3, E5, or A5, or a Microsoft 365 E1, E3, E5, or A5. Additionally, you will need to have one user in your tenant having a Copilot license. It does not need to be the SharePoint administrator. And then also a SharePoint Advanced Management license. This needs to be a SharePoint administrator to be applied. And also this will be done via the SharePoint admin portal. So therefore, you will need to be a SharePoint administrator or something equivalent to do so. Just quick kind of summary of what these reports will give you. Here's a listing of them here. We'll kind of cover this here in just a second when we talk about how you run these reports and where the UI is, and this data will be exported outwards. So let's go ahead and jump into our admin portal here. So once you're inside the SharePoint admin portal, you'll be looking for the section called Reports. So we'll go ahead and expand that, and then we'll go down to Data Access Governance. For those who've joined our webinars in the past, we have covered a number of these other options here. What we're going to be covering this time specifically is the site permissions for users. So we'll go ahead and click on this report here. You get taken to this page here. In essence, you will see every single report that has been ran. Now, these only stay around for about 30 days. So in essence, if you need to run a brand new one, you can do so, or you can rerun these ones here. To create a brand new one, you will click on this Create a Report button here. You dictate who are you going to be kind of asking the scope of. So let's just say in my example now, I'll go ahead and type my name. I select it, I hit save. I dictate where I want the search to be. Let's just say in this time I want it to be OneDrive, and we'll call this one Leona's OneDrive reports. And then I hit the create and run. Now this only allows for users, so you can't use AD groups. So you can also dictate how many you want to have. Microsoft allows you to go up to 100 users if you ever wish to kind of build a report that large. So we'll go ahead and hit the create and run button. Wait for our page to reload. So now we can see that there is a report running. This will take hours to run, so please just be aware, hey, you're not going to have this instantaneously. This is going to be more of a hit the run button and then probably come back tomorrow type of idea. So in essence, as of right now, we can see that we do have two that have successfully ran. Let me just go ahead and click on one of these. And let me do a refresh on this page. Sometimes it is a little bit unhappy with me. Let me go back to sharing links. Oops, let me go back to data governance one more time. My apologies. Let's see if we can get it to work this time. So in essence, whenever you have had a report successfully ran, here we would see every user that we ran the report on. So as of right now, I have all the project managers and myself included in here. So in essence, if I wanted to see a breakdown of all the things that Andrea has been kind of granted access to, whether it be site collections, this will give you that same table that we saw a moment ago in my PowerPoint presentation about the number of files that exist in the site. How many of those files have been shared directly with her? How many have been indirectly accessed? Also, for clarification, what indirect access means versus direct access is that a file has been shared directly with Andrea versus a share to a group. So indirect access means that via a group, you have access to that object. You can also see if the site is shared, the sensitivity labels, the privacy status of it, is external sharing turned on, and also who the primary admin is. You can also click the download report that will download an Excel workbook for you specifically for that user. Additionally, you can hit this download detailed report up here that will download multiple Excel files for every single person that you ran the report on. Let me just go ahead and click on this download button here. Let me go ahead and open this file now. So if I download these files here, we can see that we have a number of different workbooks in here. Let me just click on mine. So now we get taken to my workbook, and then that has all that same data plus a little bit more with inside of here. So it has like tenant ID, your site ID, site names, templates, et cetera, et cetera. So this does give you a quick overview of, what access does this user have, making sure that they do not have access to things they shouldn't have. Also to ensure that, hey, if content is being shared, ensuring that there's proper channels being done as well as that. So again, this is pretty short and simple. It gives value to your IT department specifically to quickly do a permissions report on users versus having to do a bunch of PowerShell or other audits along the way. So that concludes my section of today. So Hayden, I'll pass it back on to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Leona. This is perfect to make sure every file and document is in compliance with your company. It's also a great tool to use for training. If you see some users constantly having issues with this, or a lot of users, it's perfect to get them all trained up and good to go. So thank you so much. Thank you, Leona. Thank you all presenters for today's presentation. And thank you for the dataBridge team behind the scenes that makes this webinar possible. That does conclude the learning portion for today's webinar. I hope we've been able to spark some new interest for functionality that you and your teams can explore. Please be on the lookout in your email for our next webinar, which will be coming up soon. And we look forward to learning with you again. Now, before we segue into our live Q&A section of this webinar, I do want to remind everyone that all webinar notes, slides, and recordings will be on our learning portal for easy access for everything discussed today and in the past for our SharePoint support clients. If for some reason you don't have access or would like to gain access to this learning portal, please reach out to us after the webinar and we'll make sure you're taken care of. All right. We will now segue into our open live Q&A forum. If you don't plan on sticking around for it, we do want to say thank you again for learning with us today. On the screen, we are showing instructions on how to raise your hand, and questions will be taken in order of hand raised as well as users being unmuted. As a friendly reminder, the questions that you can ask do not have to pertain to this webinar. It could be any of your M365 questions, and we'll answer it as they come up. I saw there were some questions in the chat during the webinar. It looks like it's been answered, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or even continue to use the chat if you'd rather not. Daniel, I see your hand up. Someone can unmute.
Hi, you guys hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, quick question for Leona. When we run these audit reports on specific users, there's a column on the report that says external sharing. Is there a way to identify who it was shared to externally? How can I pull that information?
That is specifically if the site has external sharing turned on as a policy. So it isn't per se if external sharing is occurring. It's more of, does the site collection itself has external sharing enabled?
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Good question. Good question. Any other questions? We'll give a couple minutes. Yeah, check the chat. Daniel, check the chat. Andrea just dropped some good insights as well. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. If you do have questions or need to follow up with us after, just reach out. We're happy to help. And until next webinar, we'll see you guys soon. Thank you. Bye.